Hi, my name's Lee Matthews and I'm a physiotherapist here at Queen's Hospital, and I'm a part of the pain management team. And today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the importance of exercise with managing a long-term pain condition, and we call that a rehabilitative approach. We know that with long-term pain that it impacts on every aspect of our lives. And in amongst the things I've talked about in my previous videos, pain as a protector, and there's another one called turning down the volume on your pain, I mentioned a couple of times the importance of things like a gentle stretching program and also starting to do some gentle reconditioning exercises. Well, today I wanted to elaborate on that a bit further and talk about ways you could start to implement those, good starting points, and how you can do this in a safe and controlled way at home. And many of you might have already tried exercise at home. Sometimes it could have actually made your symptoms worse or made you sore so you didn't want to do it again. So this is about finding ways of doing it gently in a way that doesn't flare up your symptoms too much, and it allows you to function alongside doing those things regularly, and then hopefully over time you'll see the benefit there. We know that even the right exercise done at the wrong intensity can actually cause what we call a flare-up. So the skill is not only finding the right exercise for you, but also applying this little and often approach. And it might be to begin with, when you start to move in different ways, that you notice pops and creaks. You might get some joint stiffness and irritability that goes with that. And we know that muscles can sometimes protest when we start doing some stretching. But again, this is why we need to do it gently in a little and often approach, and then hopefully it won't leave you sore for days afterwards. And you might be skeptical. You might have even had a bad experience when you tried to exercise in the past. We tend to find this is because traditional approaches towards exercise aren't necessarily the way we'd go about exercising with a long-term pain condition. When we go to a gym, phrases that are familiar include feel the burn, no pain, no gain. And sometimes people feel that unless they've suffered with exercise, unless they've pushed into pain or made themselves really sore, that they won't get benefit from it. So I'd actually be encouraging you that exercise can be beneficial done at a very gentle pace, and we'd much rather see a little and often approach. I'd much rather know that you went for a short walk each day for just a couple of minutes than going out for a longer walk once a week and then finding you were sore for days afterwards. We learned previously with pain as a protector how our pain can be like a warning system that goes off. We want to exercise in ways that don't trigger that warning system. So where should you begin? Well, we know that certain activities are kinder for someone with a long-term pain condition. And if you're struggling to get through your normal day, we'd encourage you to start small. Often we'd begin by implementing a daily stretching program. To begin with, you might just try a few gentle stretches, maybe even just doing them once a day to begin with, but slowly progress towards trying to do them twice a day. Ideally, if you can bookend your day with doing stretches in the morning and in the evening, then you'll find that you actually get more of a benefit from them. Even doing stretches every day, it might be 8 to 12 weeks before you see any changes. And we often find that pain is a poor indicator of change, that actually where you might notice things improving first is how long you can do a task for. It might be you can stand a little bit easier, it might be you can bend down a bit easier to tie up your shoelaces. So why is stretching useful? Well, when we start to do stretching, we help to ease muscle tension, it helps to reduce joint stiffness, and it also lubricates our joints as well. What we also find is that when we're doing stretches, it stimulates some of those nerve endings, the nerves that are in our tendons, our ligaments, our joints, our muscles. They all start to send electrical signals towards our brain, and that actually helps to turn down the dial on our pain. So even with widespread pain conditions like fibromyalgia, we know that stretching is of benefit, but to see the full benefit, it needs to be done daily. So if you were looking for some guidance about how to start with stretching, we've actually made available a video with some neck stretches, there's another with some back stretches, and there's another with stretches for a long-term pain condition. And you'll find that with all of those stretches, we go about them in a similar manner. So for instance, if I demonstrate a stretch for my back, doing what we call side flexion, try and relax when you stretch, try and breathe normally, don't tense up, and you'll find that the stretch is a bit easier. You find that if you tense up as you're stretching or hold your breath, it makes the stretch more uncomfortable and you don't tend to go as far. And notice when we stretch that we don't bounce. We just hold that stretch and maintain it for about 10 seconds and then back up again. And I'll try and stretch on both sides. And don't be surprised if you find that you've actually got more movement on one side than the other. Frequently we'll find that people in pain have got tightness of one muscle group more than another, especially if your pain's more on one side than the other. And it might be that you've had some pops and creaks when you start to stretch, particularly first thing in the morning, and that's absolutely fine. We know that joints that are stiff can make some pops and creaks sometimes. So try and implement those stretches as part of your daily routine. If they're part of your routine, you're far more likely to stick with them, because we're in this for the long haul and these things need to be done little and often. So once you're feeling confident with your stretches and doing them more comfortably, we want you to start to consider adding some gentle strengthening exercise. And again, with strengthening exercise, it isn't a case of one size fits all. We know, for instance, that swimming can be useful with managing a long-term pain condition, but actually if you're scared of water, if you don't live anywhere near a swimming pool, or if the swimming pool isn't compatible with your daily schedule, then that might not be the right starting point for you. But whatever you pick to begin with, we want it to be something that's cheap, convenient, enjoyable, and hopefully sociable too. And if it's all of those things, you're far more likely to stick with it. And it might be to begin with, you start off with a graded exercise program, like a series of stepping stones. By doing a few minutes of exercise each day, you can build your strength up and build up your tolerance of activity. And then it might be a week or two later, you add a small increment and then consolidate that over the next couple of weeks. And slowly, you might find that you're building yourself back towards an activity you enjoy doing. And for strengthening exercise to be of benefit, it only needs to be done for a few minutes each day. We'd encourage you to pick something gentle, something that's low impact. So we'll often recommend things like a gentle walking program each day. It might be you go for a swim for a couple of lengths of the pool a few times a week. It might be you take up an activity like Tai Chi, which we know is good for our balance and just gently improving our strength. We also encourage things like gentle Pilates or seated yoga. Done at a low intensity, these can be a really useful way of adopting gentle stretching, slow flowing movements that help to strengthen our muscles as well. And people sometimes start to go to the gym, but we're not looking to become, a bodybuilder. We're just looking for a few minutes of gentle activity, and you might just focus on going for 10 minutes and doing some cardio to begin with. But whatever you pick, we're looking for a little enough of an approach that doesn't leave you sore for days afterwards. And whatever your chosen activity, we'd encourage you to start gentle and see how you go. To begin with, work out what your baseline is. It might be you feel fine while you're doing the exercise, but then you struggle later. So monitor how you perform when you're doing that task. And it might be you go 3 or 4 times and do the same activity, and you might actually find that one day you can do it a lot more easily than another. But whatever it is over those 4 consecutive attempts at doing it, work out what your baseline is. And it might even be to begin with that you do 20% less than your baseline and then work at slowly consolidating it. The plan being that doing that activity regularly doesn't then provoke your symptoms, so you can do it comfortably, get all of the benefits from it, and slowly consolidate your ability to do it. And it might be that a week or 2 later, you can then add that 20% increment back on, so you're then working at your baseline of tolerance. And as we said before about a series of stepping stones, I'd then encourage you to slowly consolidate small 20% increments, so it might be a few weeks later, you add another 20% increment. And hopefully, by applying this graded approach to returning to that activity, you won't have so many bumps in the road, you won't have so many flare-ups that make your pain worse. And ideally, when you start to exercise, we're looking at the level of intensity to be that you can exercise comfortably and still be able to talk. So if you're lightly breathless, that's a good intensity to be starting at. But if you find that you're so puffed out that you can barely speak, you're probably pushing too hard to begin with. And once your chosen activity starts to become easier, start to have a think of ways that you can make it more challenging. It might be that you do it for a few more minutes. It might be that you add repetitions. It might be that you add resistance. And sometimes there's variations or progressions on the exercises that you're already doing. So find a thing that you enjoy, start to consolidate it and then build upon it. And make sure that every month or two you're starting to have a little look at how you go about things, and you might change things slightly so that there's still a gentle challenge there. And even if you start small, make sure that you have a goal in mind, something to aim toward. In conclusion, regular daily stretches alongside a gentle graded exercise program can help to better manage the symptoms of a long-term pain condition. The skill is in finding a good starting point for you and applying that consistently. And that requires determination. You've got to carry on doing them with a little and often approach every day. And even knowing that it could take 8 to 12 weeks before you start to see any significant changes. So that requires commitment. You've got to make time in your day, time in your schedule. But if you persevere with it, hopefully you'll see those benefits. And remember, with exercise, it's okay to feel sore but safe when you start to do these things. If we started to move a rusty garden gate, it might protest a bit before it then starts to move more freely. And in the same way, when you start to move in different ways, you might find that it does cause some discomfort to begin with. But go gentle and apply the things that we talked about, and hopefully you'll meet with success. So hopefully, using this information, you'll have more confidence about starting to apply a gentle daily stretching program, and then slowly introducing some gentle graded exercises. And over time, we're hoping that you'll see the benefits too. So thanks for watching.